What's up, everybody? It's Eve. Follow me on Twitter and YouTube for space recordings and special live programs. 2024, we're doing things a little different if you haven't peeped game by now. So, yeah, this is your chance. You can do it now if you want. Hit the bell here on YouTube at JustEveB or find me on X at Justice4Just Us. That's JUSTICE, 4 JUST_US. And if you feel so inclined, support my channel and the work we do over here. The Cash App and Patreon links are in the description. Black first.
How do you see both sides tactically? Let's bring in our US analyst, Michael Ware, for this. What's the skinny in your view here, Michael? How do you see both sides tactically approaching this?
Well, mate, as you know, this is one of the most consequential, I think, presidential debates in modern history. You know, when you want to think of Richard Nixon's sweaty lip when he was debating JFK, or whether you want to think about the most recent presidential debate with Joe Biden that ended a campaign.
Yeah.
So, you know, the stakes are pretty high here, and they're going to have two very different tracks to try to target the same audience. Because let's not forget, this entire election is going to come down to the votes of a few tens of thousands of people.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back, or hi, and welcome if you're new here. I know it's been a while. Hey, Marie.
Hey.
Tonight it's such a very interesting night because we were already going to be live tonight. But then life be lifing, and y'all gotta get the stick about your asses about having to do things however you scheduled them to go, because sometimes it just doesn't work that way. So working with the schedule.
When it doesn't go the way you planned it to go, just so you know.
What'd you say?
I'm like, it just doesn't always feel that good when it doesn't go the way that you had planned it to go.
Right.
You know, but
no, that's for sure. And then, you know, it's not ideal, but I find that being more organic than rigid or, you know, linear, that might help things along. And then for what it's worth, you know, we're here to have uncomfortable conversations about being the adults in the room. And this election season has this election season.
The season. What season is it?
The season. This is the reason for the season, right? It's your duty to do what needs to be done, and the lesser of two evils. How to choose. We've kind of been having this conversation for a couple of weeks now, and people keep calling us a supporter of versus what I think is more accurate. Marie, I think we're more interested in the policies, right? And then if there's policies that make sense, then you will probably get the votes of those people who align with those policies. Like that's like common sense, right?
Absolutely. But I don't necessarily think so. That's the catch, though. I don't always think, like, even if you think about it recently, Kamala just recently came out with her policies. And you know, the funny part again is I haven't really had the chance to look over Trump's because I just wouldn't dare. And not in that sense of saying not that I'm just going to cut. Like, you should always kind of have an idea of what your enemy is doing. Trump just doesn't have enough integrity to me as an individual. So therefore, at no point would he ever be like, I want to vote for the pussy grabber. And not that I didn't do good. You know, I didn't do well or didn't do well. I've done well under any presidency, right? But it's just because of who I am. However, I also think that when you vote, you don't just vote for your interests, you vote in the interests of the masses. That's like the mature thing to do. So it's like, However, with Trump being in office last time, I just felt like it brought a lot of chaos and nastiness. And I'm just not the biggest fan too of what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not the biggest fan of the idea that, it's like, oh, well, he kind of gives, he almost amplifies or gives people that wouldn't typically have permission to kind of to share their views. And I do like a little decorum. I do come from the Obama era. I like my fascism to have a little decorum. Let's do here. You guys just can't come out here all willy nilly now. That's not going to work. We can't just have the roaring racists and stuff like that. And the fake news. It's just a lot. It's like exploitation.
It's polarizing.
Yeah.
It's would you say that it's polarizing and fake, or absolutely emotionalism because it's necessary? Like, or is there something else?
I want to, as much as I would like to say it's fake, I do think it's genuine. But then there's a part of me that this is also a guy that had a reality show. So I really, I can't really say how much is for fanfare, how much is it to kind of just get the masses like, oh, even with January, was it January 6th?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he realized what he would incite, though I'll admit that I do see some value in what occurred. And if only the other side could have some tenacity, just a little bit, like if they just could touch the hem of the garment of those racist people, just so they could have a little bit of militancy and be willing to kind of fight for what they want. Everyone wants to abide by all these rules and policies when the other side is not doing that. So like, well, we got to do the right thing. Well, we can't do that. We can't do executive orders. That's and Trump comes in, boom, executive order. Like comes in just doing like, whoa, 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 whoa. That is that even legal? And he's like, I don't give a fuck. I don't care. And it's like, if you could see a little bit of that, it's like, well, they want to it's like, well, vote for Kamala. We'll reverse Roe versus Wade. Well, let's just go ahead and reverse it now. Don't you got immunity? Don't presidents now got immunity? Let's go ahead and let's put a pedal to the metal. You know what I mean? Let's make some things happen with this immunity we have. I would like to see a little bit of more. I would like to see some people coloring out of the lines a little bit. You know what I mean? Instead of the status quo, and that's also the problem. Is it's the status quo. It's like we're retaining our policies overseas, the way we handle things. We're still continuing to be the empire, and empiring a little too hard for my taste. We have our own little rogue North Korea. They're murdering people by the thousands. Just not a good look for me. But anywho, Kamala did post her policies, you guys. But you guys were actually supporting her before she posted them, which is probably like, y'all ain't gonna see what she had to say. They're like, yeah, but she looked like me.
Yeah, see, and
okay. They're like, she didn't grab any pussies. That's fair. But and that's the problem too. Like, I'm afraid that now we are at the point where it's like, I'm just voting because, some people voted for Trump because it wasn't Obama. Some people were so just a black president. A black president was a fucking moderate, damn near conservative, was in office, and it rubbed people the wrong way. So they immediately went for the the complete opposite, the trashy white guy, the trashy, he reminds me of like some guy that would be in Vegas. He would have like one of those shows that runs in Vegas. He has a residency in Vegas. He has these bright colors and he wears like gold suits or something. Gives me, what is it, Austin Meyer? What is it? What is that movie series or whatever with the British guy? That's what it gives me now.
That's hilarious, Marie. And to the chat, thank y'all for being here. We like to have conversations like this because it shows how two sides of an argument can have aligned goals. Marie and we have varying levels of disagreement inside of all of what she just said. But at the end of the day, no, there's been a lot of people who are supporting people without knowing what it is that they're going to bring to the office, as much as they just have melanin like them, right? Or
they're racist like
them. Right, there you go.
It's just like me, or racism ain't really a deal breaker for me. We can't have that damn Kamala.
Yeah, see, and to me, I like my racist up front. I don't like the people who will smile in my face and then go enact policies that are going to oppress me. That's
And
why I have a big issue with the current administration. Like you said, they have the real deal time to do pretty much anything right now. I mean, if you wanted the vote, you would start doing things. Sergeant Slaughter in the chat, you see what they said? They said the Democrats got to start with revamping their party policy goals. And I don't know. I mean, there's a very real argument for the dual party system that we've all grown to love and hate to kind of be dismantled altogether. It shouldn't just be primarily a Democratic or a Republican person in office, as much as all of these different ideas should get an opportunity to make their case to the American people. But then that would be a democracy, wouldn't it? And then what of the Electoral College at that point? It's not like that Congress members that have their votes are in big numbers in these other parties, right? You don't have 100 Green Party members or 100 independents, or as much as 200 or so Democrats and 200 or so Republicans, and then they start to lean in their respective directions.
So here's my thing. First, how dare you call out a system that's not working? How dare you? How dare you acknowledge a system that is not working? Or no, in fact, it's working as
as it's supposed to, right?
It's actually working how it's supposed to, but how dare you, how dare you admit that like the thing isn't doing the thing, like, or it's insanity to actually expect a different result from the same thing, like doing the same thing you've always done. Like, yeah, this ain't, well, my mama did it with that. So just because it's your mama don't mean she not wrong. Your mama can be wrong too. Your grandmama can be wrong. So that's a hard pill to swallow because, you guys evangelize your parents too and politicians. So it's like, well, they did, and they dead ass wrong. Or even, I find the new rhetoric too that it's like, they died for our right to vote.
Yes.
No, they actually were murdered for just wanting to do something different. It really wasn't like they just wanted to do something different. They wanted to, to step away from the norm or status quo, and they were murdered because of it. They did not. In fact, I'm sure that like their whole objective was for me to be able to have the freedom to make that decision or to speak my mind or to call out bullshit without just, being fucking murdered, That's always nice to live to tell about it.
Murdered because you were Black. To me, do something different, maybe. But murdered because you were doing something. And if the different thing was for self versus for me for free, then yeah, they were murdered for doing something different for sure. And then, like you said, the right to choose. If you're telling me that I have to choose, doesn't that mean that I've lost my right to choose? It's like the Bible saying that you have free will, but you got to believe in Jesus and God and all of these things if you want to get to heaven. But you've got free will that God gave you. You have the right to do whatever it is that you want to do. But if you choose to do those things or whatever it is, then you might not get to do the things that you want to do. It's like fine lines all over it.
Like there might be some consequences, but I mean, I think it's almost like being grown, right? They're like, you can do what you want, but you can't do what you want. Like, because let me tell you something, if I'm not in bed or sleep by like at least 1 a.m., I'm dragging ass come 7, right? I got class or I got work, I have things to do. So can I really do what I want? Yeah, but am I free from consequence? No difference. Like, hey, like freedom, I think freedom of speech is like legit. Like it's yes, everyone should have the right to say what they want. Now understand, it does not make you free from consequences. It does not mean that I won't come whoop your ass.
Yep.
After you said or did what you did, and that was the catch though too, is that it was kind of like all of a sudden racists, they felt more vocal. Which here's the thing. We talk about racism, on a regular, like it's being discussed, but I think there's there's things, right? I think even recently someone, like, it's something so minute though. It's like someone was talking about this guy not wanting his child to like marry someone black or whatever, right? And it's like, and they felt like, oh, I'm like, but you guys, like, plenty of y'all don't want y'all kids bringing anybody home of a different race either. Like,
Right.
what the fuck is the problem? Like, because you're the particular race that he didn't want. Like, do you want your child coming in with?
Oh, look at that racist. They don't want.
So is it like a
You
race?
better not bring home somebody.
There's so many nuances to being racist, these days. Let's just be honest. Like, yeah, maybe I just won't marry someone of a different race. I have those friends though. There's so many nuances when it comes to that. Where it's like, even to say, like, while I like my race is bold, like, what are we doing that you need to let me know if you like me or don't like me, or you need to mistreat me? What kind of transaction are we occurring? Like, am I at the
Exactly.
Walmart? Where am I at?
Exactly.
Now, are you
And
my
look,
employer?
for what that is,
Are you
I've
the
never
police right now?
experienced the in like when I at home. Look, I'm only a state away from home. So back home, the racists were, like, nice in your face, and you didn't necessarily know that they hated your guts or used the N-word around the dinner table. But then one state away, they're very proud about it, fly their Confederate flags or their other regalia type flags, and it's just really in your face, and it's like, okay, yeah, I can stay away from that person, or I can choose to not be over there. But here's the kicker: at the end of the day, the South is more polite overall. I think as some places, when you start going further south in certain directions, it's all about the people in that area, like that locality. So while people might be racist, they might not fuck with you, they don't necessarily want others in the mix. Or, I mean, I've seen very racist people, seemingly racist people help people in an emergency because we're all American, but maybe there's nuances that we're missing. Maybe they're
Yeah, like, I mean, I think it catches like, I wouldn't mind helping. So, and this is like, so this isn't me saying this, right? This is just me giving you an idea. I don't mind helping the person with the flat tire or whatever, but do I want you bringing their ass home? Do I want them moving
amen to that.
I mean, I think there's things. But I think one time I got pulled over. I was in Louisiana, and I was like, he was like, why are you? I'm like, because I'm black and you're a cop. So, and I'm gonna be honest to say, for me personally, I've actually never had to call the police once. And even if I've ever been victimized or a crime, the crime like it already happened. Like, there was nothing like. So it does mean that I haven't been in situations that maybe I could have possibly been helped out by the police, but by the time I needed them, it was too late. If anything, they'd just been a glorified administrative assistant who takes some notes. Now, what happened? There's never been a time in my life where I've had to contact a police officer for anything. I've never called a firefighter, for anything. And I say that to say, because, folks like, well, when you need it, like, at no time did I ever need anyone to write me a ticket. I've never needed anyone to take notes on my behalf for me. Yeah, just haven't had to call. And and I'm not in situations that are, kind of questionable, what I'm saying? Like, well, it was a fight and I was at this. I'm not at the fight. I wasn't at the shooting. I probably went home right before they were shooting. And I still have like a weird, like, well, my friends like, well, they were shooting up there yesterday. Well, what's the likelihood they come back and shoot tomorrow? We can still go. I said, I don't like, come on now. But, not to veer away from the topic.
You're insane.
Not to gear away from the pot, like, not to, I don't want to navigate too far away. I think the concern is that oftentimes it's like the Democrats present themselves as being, the friend of this minority group, the friend of that.
Or not even the friend of. They are self-identified as the Black Party, right? So then if you're the Black Party, then
you're not black if you don't vote for them, but at the same time, you're not enacting, like, and almost to some degree, one that's like a form of neoliberalism. It's like, oh, well, or even the idea, when I look at a lot of their policies, I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of them as a middle class Black woman, a middle class, like, they don't really benefit me. So unless you're just implying that all of us motherfuckers poor, and not poor because of inflation and greed, because there's like, I do be feeling like my money don't be money and like it's
Right.
supposed
I mean,
But-
that's true too.
excuse me.
Mhm.
I almost forgot that. Are you there still? We're still there?
Yeah. I'm here.
Need to put my stuff on do not disturb. Anyhow, oh, what I was saying, like phone call. I'm like, why would I forgot that I forgot that my computer takes calls too. So I'm like, why are you? What's happening? Where I was going with this is that a lot of their policies don't really benefit me as a middle class American. I don't feel like even a lot of their policies actually benefit the parties, the people that they claim they do. You know, if they're saying they're in this interest or that interest, the Democratic Party is owned by a lot of corporations, the same corporations that are exploiting the most vulnerable groups of people in America, from African Americans, Hispanics, Latinos, or whatever. Like they're exploiting them, they're taking from them, they're doing things within their community, they're poisoning their community, just things like that. So in essence, you can't say, hey, I'm for these people, and at the same time, these other people are lining my pockets with money. And not to say they're also not lining the Republican pockets too, because I have witnessed firsthand and seen what a poor white community looks like, being in the South, having traveled through the South on business trips and just going to those really rural areas, and literally they look like they're in shacks, which I could never, like, yeah, I've seen a little hard times. I've never seen a time that hard. Okay. That being said,
she said she's been in the trenches, but it ain't been like that.
But no trench like that, baby. That being said, that they're being taken for a ride too, and there are companies there as well that are absolutely taking advantage of those rural white people, like that are living in, like, there's this place, I think I want to say they call it like Death Alleys in Louisiana, and all it is like factories, and the cancer rate there is just extremely high. But again, these people they can't, one, that's like their employer. So, right, they work in there. They can't afford to really go anywhere. So that's really what they know. But I also say that to say that they're being taken for a ride too. You know what I mean? It just seems different because I feel like for the Democrats, a lot of this, they love, like, or a lot of the people that vote for Democrats, they love that call out. Like, they felt recognized. For the African Americans or the Latinos, and I'm here to speak. And, I'm speaking on I would say Muslim Americans, but they really didn't get a representation this time around. But I guess it could be because of the vast majority of people of Arab and Palestinian descent that they're murdering right now, that it's just kind of like, yeah, we don't know what you're going to say. You could go rogue on this motherfucker, so we're not going to let you get up here and speak. But for the most part, they're constantly doing these call outs, which makes it come across as if they have something for them. It's kind of like perception, right? Perception isn't necessarily reality. But if I'm showing up this Black church or this Black community event, and I'm spewing my spew, because understand too, they don't give a fuck what you really got going on in your little local community, what's going on in your church. If something's happening in Inglewood or whatever your hood is, something's happening, they don't care. They're just here to get your vote. They're going to say their little thing, shake your hand, kiss a baby, keep it fucking moving. But I feel like when whites see that sometimes, especially struggling, they feel like to some degree, it's like they feel as though that they're not being seen. They're like, look, they were there, they were in this area and blah, blah, blah. The whole time it's like they really don't give a fuck about them neither. Don't get it twisted. So, so this whole agenda where even too, I feel like even the racism we were talking about, it even comes from people feeling like they're being left out by a party. Whole time, everybody just getting fucked. We're all getting fucked in the ass. You're getting fucked in the ass. You are. But they did a call out. They're like, we're here for the African Americans. We went to the church. We're at your Episcopal Methodist. What is it? What are the Baptist church? We're here. Like, I'm gonna need you. Don't come up in here no more.
Now they need to get the Bloomberg treatment. Where the congregation stood up and turned their backs, because not only is there supposed to be a separation of church and state, but I just saw on Twitter the other day that an election. They were teaching people how to run the polls. Like, I guess it's like training. But then in the training session, they were talking about homeless people and how you can get them in here and you can get them to vote. And if they don't have an address, just use the church. And it was just like, whoa, is this legal? Are y'all allowed to do that? And maybe that's why
That's absolutely fucking not legal. What do you mean? That's absolutely not legal.
All right, that's not y'all. I saw it with my own
Democrat. Because even so I will say I would never. I don't ever foresee a Republican like bring the homeless in here and they're
right. But I don't want to misspeak on what party it was as much as I do know it was an election precinct. Actually, let me share.
What kind of church was it? I'm gonna tell you.
Look. Hold on. Here it is. Oh, come on. I hate how Twitter doesn't let me go to posts that I want to go to as much as it's just like, I'm gonna just show you what I want to show you. I'm gonna pull it up when I find it in a second. But Marie, the Democrats, they do an all call, and then the people that they bring over with open arms don't even vote for them. The numbers are astonishing, and I find that because of what you just said, it's not just Black America that's getting shit on when it comes to these parties and their promises and policies and all of the shit. It is poor white America. It is the forgotten ones. But inside of that, most of us are not participating unless there's something tangible to be gained.
I mean, and absolutely, you should. That should kind of be the way it is set up. I don't think that that's the thing anymore, unless you own Walmart or something like that.
Right. Well, so then inside of that, though,
fully tangible.
That's why it's got to be emotionalism. It has to be you don't like this person, so we need to hone in and zero in on that. Oh, here it is. I found it. It was a shared tweet. Watch this.
You gotta get us out the way first. You gotta get us out the way first.
Oh, true. Let's make it big on them, and let's make.
Oh yeah, that's real Black. You can't tell me them ain't Democrats, and they're a little too diverse. They can't get up here and act like we're not gonna do that today.
But wait, listen. You gotta listen. Watch this.
So should we put the church address because that's where they come? Because they live on the where do they sleep? On the street. Right outside the church, right at that's the residence center. Roof Street and
cut this off. She got a Dallas shirt on. Cut it off.
In that area, the description, that's the residence center.
No, she's just repping for no, I do think that they're in Dallas.
I know, I'm like, cut it off.
That is hilarious.
But this is exactly how politicians work. Cut it. That's my city. Cut the tape. Never mind. No, we'll just expunge that from the record.
That is too funny. But look, it's not just Dallas though. When we talked about Fulton, didn't we talk about Fulton, Georgia? How they were picking up homeless people to fill the seats.
Yeah.
Before the rally, just to give the illusion that there are people who give a damn. And then even then they wouldn't stay for the whole thing because they were leaving.
Well, like I said too, so in Dallas, our mayor ran as a Democrat, won, and then he split as a Republican. So there's that happens. They got them all types of names from the flipper, this, that, like like,
America great again.
That's insane. And it's so crazy that you can have these political systems. I'm sorry, machines. Become the nation's both of these machines are run on the backs of the American people, and then the common sense people
From NBC
who
News,
just want
here
things
are Lester
to be
Holt
normal.
and
We
Savannah
don't want to be
Guthrie.
bombing people. We don't,
Hi, everybody. Good evening,
all
and
these
welcome to our
wars,
special
stop
coverage
all
of the
that shit.
first
We're
and
gonna take care of the
perhaps
homeless.
last debate between
The
Vice President
Democrats
Kamala Harris
don't
and former
speak to Black
President
America
Donald
the way that I
Trump.
think
Eager to
that they
get
want
started
to.
here. We're
Because,
just
like you
moments away
said,
from that historic moment.
You have to mute
I
them.
think I'm like lower
Have
middle
ever
class, if
faced each
anything,
other
but
directly on a
you
debate
can't
stage.
help me with
Notably,
my
as mentioned,
weed
it will also be
charges
the
because I don't
first
have
time they
any,
have ever
right?
met
You can't
in
help me
person
vote
after
again
Mr.
because
Trump
I'm not a
skipped
felon.
President
You can't
Biden's
help me buy a house
inauguration.
because
Well, this
I've
will be
already
Trump's
done that.
seventh
Can't
appearance
help
in a
me with
general
some school
election
because I've
presidential debate, and
already done
Harris's
that too.
first.
I think a lot of
And with
Black
election
America
day
has
less
done
than 2
the
months away now,
things
tonight's
that
debate
they say
could shake up
do
a very
to
tight race.
have
It's
these
already had a lot of surprises, should
economic
we say.
Harris
opportunities,
says she is
right?
ready.
Because
She
you
has
gotta
been
think.
preparing
No,
for
I'm just kidding.
games
I'm
with
just
mock
fucking
debates in
kidding.
Pittsburgh,
But if she
complete
puts
with
on that
stage
black
and
scent
TV
tonight,
lighting,
I'm gonna
along with
just
the same
die,
stand-in
and you're
for
gonna have to call
Trump
the
that Hillary
ambulance and
Clinton
get me
I
out.
don't
used.
know. I did watch her with her sister. It did get black.
Team says he's had
But I don't know.
Didn't see the
extensive
union
debate prep
member
sessions
thing.
over the
Oh
weekend
my
You might
gosh!
at his
need to turn
Mar-a-Lago
back the
home
background
in
because I
Florida.
can't hear you.
Tonight's debate will be held at the National
No, I
Constitution
don't have
Center in
the audio on
Philadelphia in the
yet because
critical
they're just
battleground
talking.
state of Pennsylvania.
And like the last debate between Trump and
Let's
President
see.
Biden
I
in
know
June,
it's
there will be no
Watch
audience in the
this,
venue
Marie.
tonight.
You
And the
cannot tell me.
Our nation, the brothers and sisters of labor, have stood together to righteously demand fair pay, better benefits, and safe working conditions. And let me say, every person in our nation has benefited from that work. Everywhere I go, I tell people, look, you may not be a union member, you better thank a union member for the 5-day work
It
week.
gets better.
You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time.
I'm sorry. She's working it. Look at her working it. Look at that face. Look.
Because what we know is when union wages go up, everybody's wages go up. When union workplaces are safer, every workplace is safer. When unions are strong, America is strong. We know what we're talking about. The labor movement has always understood the power of the collective and the power of unity. The power of unity.
And see, this is where I got to stop it because I don't know if she knows history or if she's just a blatant liar. Because unions only came about because they didn't want the skilled labor class, i.e., the Black people that they had just forced to do all of this skilled work, to get paid for work. So we get to make little boys and girls clubs about, who gets to have these jobs with these skilled professions, with these trades, and then everybody else kind of has to deal with what's left. So I don't know if I want to thank a union member as much as, we can join unions now. And I think that's cool. The illusion of inclusion. But what is she really saying other than she needs the vote and she's trying to talk to people who aren't big pharma or Trump's buddies? Like, because that's all she keeps saying is that if you're not a billionaire, then you need to vote for me because I'm going to tax the billionaires. But how many billionaires are there in the country? And does she think that billionaires are the ones voting for Trump en masse? Because that's retarded. Excuse my language. I don't know. But you better thank a union member because Kamala can turn on her black scent like Hillary Clinton. I think she might have took a page out of Hillary's book.
I mean, we all code switch now. Now. I
of
think
Pennsylvania.
recent
So
told me
let's
I
take you
sounded
inside the
educated.
debate hall now and show you the stage where this debate will be taking
You
place.
sounded
And
what?
Savannah spoke about some of this.
Sounded
So this is your
articulate.
traditional one-on-one presidential
Oh.
debate, right? Both
Well,
candidates
how
standing.
racist.
Former President Trump
They
will
were
be on the
black,
left
but
side
it
of your
was just
screen,
kind of like,
Vice President Harris on the right side.
How
We'll explain why in just a
self-hating of
moment. The
themselves.
debate will be about
I had
90 minutes with
time
two
to know about
breaks. There will be no opening
I'm like,
statements.
oh.
Each candidate will
I'm
be
like,
given
yeah,
2 minutes
we
to answer the
both.
moderator's questions, 2 minutes for rebuttals if
Because
needed, and
it's
1 minute for
different.
follow-ups,
Look,
again, if needed.
I
Former
think
President
that
Trump won the
it's
virtual
different
coin
if
toss, so
it's
he's
a part
opted to
of
speak
you,
last
or if
during
it's
the
something
closing
you're putting
statements.
on.
That's really
Like
important.
Candace
Because
Owens,
of that,
right?
Vice President
Everybody
Harris
loves to
got to
hate
choose
Candace Owens,
her
but she's a
position,
good
which again
example here.
is on the
She
right
can
hand
put
of your
on
screen.
a
As
black
for the rules
scent
tonight, there are a
of
handful of
sorts,
them. You've spoken about a
but
couple of them. They are very
that's not
important. Mics
her,
are
and
muted when
she's
the
not
other
out
candidate
here
is speaking. There is
trying
no
to
audience,
do
but there is a
that
group of
as much
journalists
as she
observing the
can
debate, known as the
do
pool.
it
There
enough
can
for
be no
white people to
interaction with
think that
staff
she's
during
got a
these
black
breaks.
scent going on.
The candidates
You know
will
what
be
I mean?
given water, a pen,
And
a pad
you
of paper. You
everything
can't bring
that
props or
on your
notes. There will
audience.
be
I
a
know
giant
people always
timer
wondered at one
just
time,
above the candidate's
people didn't know me,
timeline
like,
so they
what
know
got
exactly
you
how
doing
much
it?
time they
Like,
have. And you may notice another thing. The candidates are
cool, like,
nowhere near the same
you know,
height.
when it's
The
kind of
podiums will be
like,
slightly different, and
cool,
something
like,
to look out for the
like,
first few seconds of this debate. Here's
I
why. This will be the first time
whereas my kids
both candidates
when
meet
I
each
have
other
my
for the
students,
first time
my white
ever, or as the kids
work.
say,
Like, you know, you don't really talk like that. Shut the fuck up. They're like what, you over there making up a fake voice. So it was funny because my daughter had to present at school and she was doing the announcement stuff, and then her voice kept doing it. She was like, and I was trying to stop, but it's like I just kept putting on a different. I'm like, you put on a different voice, depending on like it's a gift. Like, you know, some people speak with their bilingual. Well, we code switch. I'm like, oh, code switch heavy. The dialect is heavy. It varies.
Yeah, I mean it's about knowing your environment and your audience, like you said, but then to code
And what
switch.
you're talking about too. Like depends on what like some things you have no choice but to sound articulate when you discuss it because you're using the verbiage that goes with said thing and that
There you go.
you may not even have a slang for it. You're like, well no, in all actuality, due to the way the advertise like it just depends on what we're talking about, you know? Like
That's true. That's true. I do think that people try to shy away from that part of the conversation with regards to an articulate black woman or articulate nigga or whatever you want it to be. I get told all the time that it doesn't sound right when I say certain words, and it's the nigga speak that I'm speaking of. You know, outside of that, I talk like me. Now I don't curse at school, you know, with my students.
you have kids.
I can code switch like that, right? You know, I try not to curse around the children, around the minis. My own minis is what I'm saying. I don't curse around your kids if they're in my class. But that's more of a professionalism thing. You know, what am I getting out of this? And most people don't curse as a way of speaking as much as people say that the colorful language is black speak, you know, not just the words, but just if you start getting all big and bad or start using aggressive or curse words, then you're doing the black thing. And Kamala, I've seen a few different videos of her speaking nasty, just not vulgar nasty, but just not like how you would think she would be talking in this environment. It's just very strange. So I don't know. I think that the Democrats have an optics thing to get over. And then if they can get over the optics, then we're back into what you
So when
said.
you say that, go elaborate on that for me.
Well, it's about the perception of it all. If you're out here saying that, you know, you're not black if you don't vote for the Democrat, bars. No, if you're using these talking points, then something would have to be the silver lining, or at least the sliver of truth, because that's how you can affect the masses. But if there isn't anything truthful that I can attach to, then it'll be very easy to just dismantle it. For example, when Trump met with the black journalists, they didn't take any time to talk about policies as much as they just wanted to show off how mean and bad he was. And it seems like that's a perception thing. Who gives a shit if he's mean? What are his policies that are making you think that he's going to be mean to you specifically? But then I've had a couple conversations with some old people, some elders, and they say, Social Security going away, they don't want their retirement to go away. But Marie, you're gonna have to correct me. This might be some Mandela effect type shit, but I want to say like 10 and 15 years ago, mainstream media was saying that Social Security and 401ks and all that shit was going to shit. Like it wasn't going to be something that we're going to be able to rely on. So,
but that wasn't the truth. They were sold.
Trump. Go ahead.
But that wasn't the bill of goods that they were sold when it occurred anyway. So even 401k was just another way for wealthy people to put their fucking money up and not be taxed on it. And then they kind of gave it to the smaller people to make them feel like, and then we're going to match some of it, which,
the illusion of inclusion. It's all a perception game. Go ahead.
I've seen some good matches, but overall, they were sold a bill of goods, especially because you're required to pay into Social Security unless you make a certain amount of income. So the idea that it's not going to be there for you to retire on, even to the way that the cost of living has fucking just skyrocketed, there's no way possible that one could live off of what the Social Security is currently unless you had something else covering you. And unfortunately, people weren't able. And the thing is, it's like that's the problem in America. There's this illusion. If you work really hard and you could work really hard, you still gonna be poor. It's about really working smart, but just being honest and being able to finesse and the right opportunity coming your way and taking advantage of it, things like that. It's really not hard work. We've seen hundreds of people, thousands of people die from hard work and die poor. So that's bullshit. Every day of the week, if if people are still selling, they just work really hard. Don't. That being said, though, I could see their frustration of it not like to me. It's like, so where's the money been going? Where's my, so even when I get to that age, well, where's my little allotment or whatever I done paid into? Where my shit at? Right. Like, well, here's the thing, it went bankrupt because even too, you have more people pulling from it than you have people like paying into
it. Right.
And then as we have this generation of children that are choosing to wait to have kids, or adults choosing to wait. I have a brother-in-law, he's having his first kid at 44. Wow. And then it was kind of like, why either he should probably go ahead and go for the second one too soon, after this one is birthed, just because of the timeline. But we're seeing a lot of that. My sister, she had her first child at 40. Oh. They were underachievers, not like me. I came in the game strong at 20. But I say all that to say that a lot of people have been fed of a bag of goods. Like this isn't what you think it's going to be, isn't what they were told. And you're going to see that, and you're going to see people aging out and still having to work. Even like realistically, right. Even saying you want to retire at 50 or 60, it's looking more like 70, 80, or just die. Just die.
No, yeah, just die.
And it'll be fine if you just die.
Preferably on the clock, and then I won't have to pay you for the work that you just did.
Yeah, maybe have some insurance when you die, so that perhaps you can have some sort of generational wealth for your family, and perhaps too also taught them the valuable skills of managing money, not just making it, so that when you die and leaving that money, it lasts them for a little bit. Okay.
That just sounds too common sense for it to be some shit that people.
It actually sounds mean too. It's just like, not just die. Don't try to hang in there.
No, I mean it's an uncomfortable conversation, because when people start saying, well, we're going to do for self, well, what does that mean? It means that you have to do for self. If people were really out here doing for self, then, you wouldn't go to the grocery store, because you would be able to feed yourself without having to rely on the food that's being sold and in the establishment, right? And it doesn't mean that you can't buy food or whatever, but you would have farmers already that, you'd be bartering. People living off the land is becoming more and more of a reality. because of the dollar not dollaring the way it's supposed to. But inside of all of that, I mean, survival of the fittest. I don't know why people think that everybody's supposed to make it to 140. And I know I'm exaggerating because I don't really want to put no age limit on people's. Yeah, I don't want to put any expired. Who knows when y'all are supposed to expire? I'm just saying that if you haven't done anything to make it count, then it doesn't matter if you're here 40 years or 80 years, as much as you're just in the way. And I know that that's mean, but most people are in the way. Really, truly. Some of y'all are in the way. This is not me being mean. It's just, it's life. Like 5% of anybody's reality are the people who are doing things that move people or change things. And it could just be something like the fucking job getting pizza Fridays, or something inconsequential that did something for your life, and you're a person that just does what you're supposed to do. You go to work, you pay your bills, you put your kids in school, you do all of the things that they say you're supposed to do. And then you die. You are essentially fluff in the matrix, and that's okay, because fluff is necessary the same way that competitions need spectators. Everybody's not going to be on the court or on the field or on the stage, and they're not supposed to be. You're supposed to have people rooting you on and saying that you're the one that's gonna shoot the shot, or yeah, we know that you've done the practice to get us to where we need to be. And that's kind of tough for America right now, because they're telling us that we've got this leader that's gonna be the best leader. Vote for them. But then we're like, why? What makes them the best leader? What's their qualifications? Well, one of them is a former prosecutor who was tough on crime, maybe. And then the other one is a billionaire who has a lot of felonies, or
the billionaire with felonies and the police officer.
Yeah, so
this is fucking weird. Like, are we in like what are we in Twilight Zone? What are we like? What's happening?
This is America. I mean, it's the land of opportunity for real. And then Kamala wants economic opportunity.
Not in a good way.
Look, here's what's going to happen though. Y'all vote for the Democrats, and what's going to happen is the 401k, Social Security, all these things that y'all are afraid is going to get sucked up by the Republicans, is going to get sucked up by the Democrats in the name of an economic opportunity zone. Because, if everybody's getting the same thing, I know there's a word for it. What'd you say? Fascism, imperialism, neo-fascism. I don't know. It's not democracy though. And it's socialism. There it is. A little like communism, but they don't have.
Y'all be liking socialism when you got to put a fire out. Y'all like when they show up to your house. Then look, don't be acting like you don't like socialism.
And some people do.
It benefits you, like when I like anything when it benefits me.
But Marie, that's the thing though. You said you've never called the firefighter or the fire department. There is a real ass bill that's associated with the fire department coming to your house. They don't just do it for shits and giggles. And when you call the ambulance, there's a very real bill that's attached to it. They're not coming out to help you with the goodness of their hearts.
I've always had my suspicions on how the bills are, so that's why I drive myself. I was like,
that shit is crazy.
Like they're like, but you're in labor, ma'am. Like that's fine. So that really means you didn't get so I can get to the labor and delivery part.
What would you call it, man? But look, you'll probably hit your deductible just with that ambulance ride. Just that one ambulance ride, you'll get there.
That is very true.
No, I mean it's the illusion of inclusion. We've got these systems that are supposed to help. 9 times out of 10, it's causing more harm than good. And then you've got these anecdotal stories of people that the guy got the cat out the tree. Oh, that's so cool. Or you got the sexy fireman calendar because women are thirsty after they get to a certain age, and they're like, oh yeah, we need these in our neighborhood. So, or the police get called out, and then the person who calls them out gets shot. Peace be to Sonia Massey and anybody like her. Like, it's, we've got systems and they're fucking with us, and then they don't fuck with us. Like, they fuck with us, but they don't fuck with us. Like, they don't like us at all. And then it's a one-off if you haven't been a victim of these systems, either by hook or crook. For you, you've never had to call them. So for whatever reason, it hasn't been like a self-inflicted wound on you like that, as much as other people have also not called them, but have had them called on them, or had them called. Look, how crazy is it to, your house is on fire, right? And you can take care of it because you've prepared for it. You've got extinguishers. You've got an escape plan. You know, your family's safe. Your house catches on fire. Your neighbor sees a fire and calls the fire department, and the fire department comes out and assists with the fire that you already had a plan for. And now you got to pay a bill because somebody was being nice. And in the same understanding, if there's a car accident and then that person looks like they're not going to make it, you know, you call 911 because, like, you witnessed the car accident. It looks bad. You want to help, right? You are the first responder. You're a bystander and you're trying to help. And then shit, that person goes to jail because the car had a damn unregistered weapon, and oh, they had a felony, or oh shit, they might have had a blunt in there in a state that you're not supposed to smoke, or something crazy. Other consequence happens as a result of you being a good Samaritan, good citizen. You know, it's too many nuances for these systems to be in place for them not to get a closer look. You know, yes, are they working the way that they're supposed to? And then if this is how they're supposed to work, maybe we don't need it. You know, defund the police, or maybe fund some other avenues for assistance so that the public and the community doesn't have to fund it. Because I'll be damned if I have to call for help and then I get a bill because of this public servant. I never got paid like that as a public servant being a teacher. And they've got extra skills. They can climb ladders and put fires out in multiple floors, and it's a safety concern, right? But then they say that being a teacher is a safety concern now too, because you can get shot by one of your students because mental health doesn't matter as much as other things. Like, I don't know, Marie. It just, too many systems, not enough direction. Does that make sense? It's a lot of things and nobody there to make them do the things that they're supposed to do. How? Why? And then if that's the case, 66% of America votes. This election, I want to say it's going to be closer to, it's going to be in the 50 range. What did you say?
Yeah, I dropped a pen. Then I was using my table as a footstool. Then I knocked the table as I was leaning down. A lot was going on. And this is me just drinking water. I probably need no alcohol.
No alcohol needed. Not for these conversations, at least.
You know, we did say some wine.
I wanted
say some wine.
It never happened. Not over here. I wanted to though. I thought it'd be a long night. I thought Kamala would be sloshed, so I wanted to get chocolate wasted with her. But no.
Why is it taking them so damn long to talk? See, this is the thing. I'm like, this is the thing.
No, really, because is it mega time that they're operating on? This is a glimpse into the presidency with Kamala. She runs on colored people time because she's a colored person.
I mean, that is no. So I ain't gonna front. So I will say I don't like when my politicians are humanized. That's a hard thing for me. I will say that I love that you never see any warm moments with like Trump or like his family or anything like that, because I think it might make him look less like a villain, where I'm gonna still be like, I'd be like, fuck Kamala and Waltz, and then I'd be seeing them with their family and I'd be like, oh,
Oh,
you know,
look
like
at your
I'm not
son.
the
He needs a
villain,
hug.
you know, blah blah blah, watching them with the sisters. And that's the thing though, I can totally see how even people were moved by the Obamas at one time, and even today I can see it, because it kind of it's relatable to some degree, you know what I mean, or it's something to obtain or some type. And not necessarily, I'm not saying that I want to be the empire and murder billions of hundreds of people and drop drones on them and stuff. I'm not saying I want to be like him in that way, but like the idea of the power couple or the adversity that they faced as a couple, things like that, they're very likable people. And so even too, when I was seeing Kamala with her sister, like I made it, everything in me had to not like the post when I seen it. Like they was talking shit, like, I'm not gonna be calling you president. Like, yes, like, yes, you are. Like, and then
But why can't you like that though? It doesn't mean you're gonna vote for her as much as you like that they have a
the thing is,
sisterhood
but here's the
camaraderie.
thing, though, I don't want to evangelize them. You know, I don't want to like it's like I don't want to be a part, because I don't want to secretly be like quietly rooting for them. Like, I'm not voting.
I got you. I got you.
No, even when I be telling
That's
you, like, I'm
honest.
not voting for her, but she's gonna win most likely, and she's gonna win because she appeals to the moderates. Even for a lot of people, even racists, they just don't necessarily. No one likes extremism. Extremism is always dangerous to some degree. And to some degree, and then we also know she's going to maintain status quo. So everything we're currently doing, all the bullshit we're currently doing, she's going to maintain status quo. I will say though that there's been some comments around the fact that we weren't as active worldwide when Trump was in office. Like we wasn't out in the streets heavy, but Trump was having things done. Trump is actually considered a war criminal, and he did have people murdered too, outside of the U.S. as well. He did have some people assassinated, so he's not 100% innocent. But I guess we weren't just seeing billions upon billions of dollars. You know what I'm saying? Oh, they can ask him a question. We can't hear now.
Yeah, hold on. This is me. This was my computer being a nigga computer technology.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
It is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime, and it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But
excuse me, the FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear, where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York, every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people
Vice President
to stop
Harris,
him.
Thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
Weaponized, please.
We
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a fake Russia investigation
We do have a lot to
that
get-
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on longstanding work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well,
response?
first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out.
Hey, Trump.
She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish, one thing so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead. Fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out of it. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400, 500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get
environment
to.
that
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, well, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle? They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
Answer the question.
Yes, sir.
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi. But I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this, you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The president of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say that.
sarcastically.
But
You know
those-
that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls. And we have to have it. We have to have borders. And we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
No judge looked at it.
and said
They said we didn't have standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as vice president of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did in fact lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart, Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that, but he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president, but when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
your time is
I think we're going to do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
The ABC News presidential debate will continue after this.
Whoa. It's an intermission.
Wow.
We've been here.
Hold on 1 second though.
I hope you guys have enjoyed our slight commentary that we've been able to offer. Complete fuck up on my part because my stream was not updating when the debate started. So CP time, not so much. User error, yeah. There's that. But I don't know that we missed much, Marie. Did you hear either of them actually answer a question? Like with the answer to the question?
Not necessarily. I did think that Kamala was more articulate than she typically is. She has been, so I don't know if they've been working with her on her speech or oration or the fact that he shouldn't make you nervous or whatever. I will say for me, it's always I didn't like the fact that she was utilizing those Israeli talking points that they were using to kind of push propaganda when October 7th occurred. Because a lot of those things have already been debunked. They found out it was their Apache helicopters that killed a lot of people. No one was ever raped. And their own publications from Haaretz to, Israel Times, they all came out and said that stuff was not true. So the fact that she keeps repeating those talking points, or even the idea that a hostile occupied nation has the right to defend themselves when they've already exceeded whatever boundaries or whatever agreement was made initially when they were given land that wasn't theirs to give in the first fucking place. But that goes with the fact that she will maintain status quo. So that was one thing I've said, and I'll say it again. And she's saying it. She's hitting the talking points. She's saying the things they have a right to defend themselves. Let's talk about they really have a right to exist. Because you're from Poland, because this guy's from Poland. Bibi Netanyahu's like name is really Nathan, and I think he went to school in Jersey, and he's Polish, and his name, he changed his name. And what people don't realize too, a lot of the birthright stuff, a lot of the propaganda also comes with them changing, like they changed their name. Once upon a time, people didn't speak Hebrew. Hebrew was spoken kind of like your priest speaks Latin, like, yeah, you're Catholic, but you don't really speak Latin, only your priest does. Well, once they started this whole nationalism movement, that's when they started, like, that was part of like their them, I guess, reclaiming their ethnicity or what have you, and that was requiring that they all speak Hebrew. A lot of the Jews in that region spoke Arabic. They were Arabic speaking Jews. They were Arab Jews.
Right.
And if you meet people from Israel, that you ask them where they're from or where their family members are from, they'll say like Morocco, Iran, like a series of Italy, this place, everywhere but like Palestine, like Poland, Russia, Ukraine.
Yeah. I mean, that's what happens when you give land to people who are not from the land, from people who are not from the land. I mean, all of this is like shitting on the melanated people around the world. It just kind of depends on which spice you like the most. Right now, we're supposed to like the curries. I do like curry. I don't know that I like it enough to win the presidency, but I don't know if I want Kamala cooking for me either. They're answering questions, but they're answering questions that haven't really been asked. And then
I feel like they're easing their thing back. And so what? Back to my $1 million plan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stimulate the economy, blah, blah, blah. Even like her whole thing with fracking. Fracking is actually really fucking bad for the environment. But the catch is that it keeps a lot of working class white Americans employed, a lot of swing voters employed. Because understand something, when you're a working class white American, you're really going to vote for who you think is going to benefit you. You're not voting because the color of their skin. You actually don't give a fuck.
Right.
You need to know that your job is stable, that things are secure. And what I will say, as the technology revolution has kind of been, brought in, we've seen more and more of those jobs go away, which is why they're swing voters.
Into this conflict, Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine's ownership from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being people being killed by the millions. It's the millions.
There's not even millions being killed.
The numbers that you're getting with your fake numbers.
Fucking
I think he just likes to say millions and billions,
250 billion or more.
It's like they undersold how many
Europe,
Palestinian
which is
lives
a much bigger
have been
beneficiary to
taken.
getting this
But
thing
they're
done
overselling
than we
because
are.
white lives matter.
They're in for $150 billion
Benjamin
less because
Netanyahu
Biden and
said that there was no
you have
live
the
loss.
courage to ask Europe, like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left. I said, oh, He must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's. Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here,
threw
we
him
ain't
out of a
seen that
campaign
in a
like a
minute.
dog.
I mean,
We don't even
he's
know.
been on the beach.
Is he our president? But we have
I know
a
you see him on the
president
beach.
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
your time is
Oh,
up.
shit.
Just
Not
to
he doesn't
clarify my
know he's
question,
alive.
do you believe it's in the
He's like,
U.S.
"Where
best
am I?"
interest for Ukraine to win this war?
Am I
Yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this
Am
war
I dead?
finished and just get it done.
All right.
Looks
Now,
at his skin
Negotiate a
in his
deal,
hand.
because we have to stop all
He's
of
like,
these human
this got to be
lives
hell.
from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as
That's
Commander in
fucking
Chief,
funny.
if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin? And would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president, you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening. But he does have that, something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And
I mean,
that's the
I don't
kind
see
of
why
talent
Putin
we
just
have
can't
with
have
her.
his land.
She's
They
worse
just
than
belong
Biden,
to them.
in my opinion. I think he's the
Isn't that
worst
the same
president in the
rhetoric
history of our
of
country. She goes down as the
the
worst
people
vice
coming over
president
to
in the history of our
Palestine?
country. But let me tell you something.
Our
She
land.
is a horrible negotiator.
And it wasn't just
They
in the
sent her
Bible
in to
that that was their
negotiate.
land.
As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always
He
should,
asked if
as a
she's met with
leader
Putin,
upholding
not
international
Zelensky.
rules and norms, as a leader
I
who
think
shows
Did you catch that?
strength,
Yeah.
understanding that the
She's not answering
alliances
the
we
right
have
question.
around the
But I
world
guess, but I
are
don't
dependent
foresee
on
Putin
our
being
ability
with us,
to look
though.
out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore
But
strongly
Ukraine ain't our friend. They're not even part of fucking NATO, and they wouldn't even let them join NATO. Told them they was too
what is
corrupt
at
for
stake
NATO.
here. The president of the
They're
United
using
States is
Ukraine to
commanding
destabilize
peace.
Russia
The
because they're a
American
perceived
people
threat.
have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen, he's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as
Now
of
we're just paying for endless
there is
wars
not
other places.
one member of the United
We
States
reallocated
military
funds.
who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not again appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, They blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this
man.
country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, "I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be
I don't
known
feel like
as
that's
black."
relevant to the
I want
debate.
to ask a bigger picture question here tonight.
But I'm so
Why do you
happy
believe
he
it's
asked.
appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words. So I'm
I don't
asking.
know. I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young Black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first Black president of the United States.
He's not black.
And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said, going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5. They admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country, one who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's
Trump,
turn back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy,
She has
please.
a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's what her plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsay,
to
go ahead.
respond
President
because
Trump,
the
President
former
Trump,
president has said
no, I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to
No,
respond to.
I'm sorry.
I
We're
just
going
need
to
to
move on,
respond
Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said
Trump, this
multiple
is
times.
now your
Yes.
third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much
You can't
better.
give health care. You can't secure a border. Failure.
9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said that if we
lousy,
and we are working on
loud.
things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this. I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something,
You're like, we'll figure it out. Just hire
something
me.
that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking.
Like, but I
this
gotta
business
say
about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged
I
as
like
being, you don't like him, you said at the time, because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it,
Vice President Harris,
in terms of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot
of... She made a mistake. Number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It was all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get. People are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change.
Okay.
President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said the climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable, but we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
The ABC News presidential debate will continue after this.
Well. Oh my. Marie, what the fuck is going on?
They real wild. So I mean, honestly, it's actually fucking, like, it's funny but sad. Like, it is real funny, you know, like, this shit hilarious.
It's hilarious.
Sad. Like, so look at this, right. So really Trump don't have no plan. He just figured he was just gonna win.
He's gonna win it.
Like, Obamacare is trash. Yeah, I don't have no solution.
Right.
And I don't think that Obamacare was set up where, like, from my understanding, in the years that I've been alive, I have not been required, nor have I had to go to the Affordable Care Marketplace. Now, I have heard it's expensive, but I've also heard it's expensive simply because of the fact that we don't regulate the cost. And so the catch is, I think the government is supposed to pick up some of the cost. So what ends up happening when the government is supposed to pick up some of the cost, these companies then overcharge or raise their rates because they know it's being subsidized. And consequently, it just ends up costing the consumer more, or the quality of the health care isn't necessarily adequate. Which, again, it sounds like, thank God I've been blessed to not have to utilize said thing, but I don't think it's required. However, I think that goes back to then needing to regulate another industry, which, again, people wouldn't like, because that would impact a lot of investors and stakeholders, because there's a lot of money to be made in case shit happens. If shit never happens, they're winning. You know, that's the whole thing with insurance. You know, if you don't use this shit, we're good. You use this shit, we not. We need, matter of fact, are you gonna start using it? Look like we need to raise the rates then, or we need to cover less and charge more.
No, that's it's definitely giving I'm gonna wing it, and you know, because y'all like me and you don't like her, you know, it's gonna be okay.
Isn't it weird though? So everyone's kind of relying on the same, like, thought. Like, I will say she sounded more articulate. Like, if I were to vote for her, if I were to vote for either one of them, it would have been her, just simply because she sounds a little more like, she's also not using the same words repetitively, which she's actually known for doing. I was really ready for her to do the burden thing, like being burdened with
it's
it.
not over until the fat lady sings, man.
But I feel like she was able to articulate her thoughts better. Even if she wasn't answering the question, she didn't sound like a maniac.
Okay.
Also, he was just...
I'll give her that. I'll give her, but I know that she's practiced. I mean, I want to say...
Oh, absolutely, because that's how the Dems are. Like, again, they're like decorum, like they're very demure with their fashion.
Right.
They're going to be respectable politics. They're going to do the wrong thing, but they're going to word it properly. We're going to deport the shit out of immigrants, but we're going to do it quietly.
Yes, you got to be nice about your treachery, or the.
I mean, in your case, you like that. You're good with that. But going back to Obama, deported the most immigrants than any president, and no one talks about it. And it was a very hush hush. And it was in my state, matter of fact, in a city I used to live in, and it was something that just no one talked. Even the news didn't report it. You know, it was just kind of like, because he's so likable. We don't want to.
I mean, straight war criminals. You know.
But it's such a nice guy, and he plays some good basketball. Like, he has a good defense and shit. and he smokes Newports, and I used to
Yeah,
smoke
nice
them. And,
little,
we have shit in common. Like, want to just have a drink on the patio, smoke a square?
Mhm.
No. We're coming on my 1 year of non-smoking, by the way.
Hey, congratulations.
My anniversary.
No, but that's real. I think that while the conversation surrounding Kamala's identity is not have anything to do with policy, I think that today is the best time she's ever or the best answer she's ever given about her identity, and then to kind of switch the focus on, we're all Americans, and stop with the divisiveness. It's going to be it's going to hit hard for the people who don't want the things that we've already said about her to be true, like the policies that she has. But let's let them finish, and then we can finish, and then let them go.
Country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right
Where
of a
does this
woman to make
lethal shit
decisions
keep
about
coming
her
from? She
own
keeps
body
saying it, and I
and
don't
not
like
have her
that.
government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world. And from
Well, there you have it, you guys. The 2024 presidential debate has concluded. Kamala has some policies that she's not doing anything with right now because she is not the president. She's holding it against us. And Trump has no policies, but he knows a lot of people. He knows good people, lots of good people.
But let's be honest, what did Biden do? I don't even be thinking vice presidents ever did shit. No way. I think the only reason Kamala even gets like the floor is because she's a black woman. Or she's deemed a black woman, whatever we want to call it now. We can
Deemed a black woman. Thank you.
She's deemed a black woman because even too, race is a social construct. It's not really your choice. It's what when they see your ass, what they think. When your profile, whatever their assumption is, that's what goes. That's what's included with it. So that's your race, your characteristics that they think you're going to have, whether you're a liability, whether you're a threat. It's all based off of your appearance. Let's just keep it a buck. But I don't.
Go ahead.
I've always kind of thought like as like the VP, it's kind of like
symbolic position type.
Yeah, you go to the cookouts and shit, you kiss the babies and shit.
You kiss the babies, you pat the heads. I feel you. But I guess the only real reason people have had the issue with the racial identification is because the policies that are pushed or removed or withheld, or it's like you can't allow the labeling and then shit on those people and then not shit on them, or then
but
not say anything when they're being shit on.
That's fair, right? But then simultaneously look at Atlanta, right? Look at
black run, black faces. Yeah, don't get lost, you guys. We understand all of
so I think we need to we want to have this standard, but it's not true. It's not fucking true. Black people will not necessarily take care of you. Being black does not mean that you're safe around other blacks. Like it's the most dangerous fucking place because really you don't see the threat. And I say that too because Atlanta is one of the cop cities. These black leaders have allowed there to be a militarized police officer, like an industrial militarization center built to harass. And again, this is in an urban area. This is a predominantly black area. So at no point are you fucking safe just because they're black. So, but I will say the fact that maybe people are voting for you on the significance of you being black, which is wrong. You're stupid. You're dumb, which is fine. But then it is kind of not fair for playing in the semantics of, imagine somebody just really choosing you because you're white and you felt safe to them. And they're like, you're not white. Oh my God. What do we do?
It's the same across the racial divide, right? Which is why I'm going to give that to her. I think that she answered the question the best way that she could without lying. I have never heard her refer to herself as anything more than Kamala, a child of an Indian woman and a Jamaican man who's had a person of color experience in America. And then from there, it's allowing other people to label you and then getting the benefit of proximity. So, but no, let's not get lost. Black faces in high places does not mean that you're gonna get anything at all. Right. Shout out to Chicago and Springfield, Illinois, and all of these places with black faces, and the black population is not getting the things that they're supposed to get.
It's almost more. So here's the thing too, it's almost predatory to some degree, right? And I even say that to say that black people want to be in high places and they're lured into a role that isn't even like going back to so let's be clear, even become the president, whether you're black, white, green, blue, or male or female, it's really you're the face of an imperialistic country. that goes around and does what imperialistic country does. They take rights away from people. They take people's land. They make it hard for them to, they run up the cost of living. And this is like an example like Hawaii.
Mm.
You know, and I think it's more so because it, like, you think of this, oh, it's Hawaii, aren't you? Why aren't you guys happy to be Americans? And then they're like, we can't even fucking live here. Like, we can't afford to live
Right.
in our
Right.
own indigenous land because all you white people have come over here, or you built these military bases and you've retired and you ran up the cost of living, and we just can't afford to be here. And even though we'd like to be mad at the Japanese, it's not the Japanese that did this to us, and you invited them over here for the fucking job so you could have labor. There's so many variables with that it's like, it's crazy, you know what I mean? And even too with the whole immigration thing, like, even if like Trump says what he says, then why didn't he get the job done in his 4 years? And that was the platform he ran on. He was build a wall, build a wall, build a wall. And again, I don't believe in building a wall, but I'm also going to say I'm not impacted by the influx of migrants coming to America. It doesn't impact my daily life in any way, shape, or form. They're not in my neighborhood. The immigrants or whatever that do here, they do, they do jobs that I'm not gonna do.
I mean,
And
you got to be honest about it, though. You know, like
that's why I'm being honest. Like, okay,
right,
so they not pulling up in my hood. They're not, in my apartment complex or next door. They didn't take over my whole building like maybe in Colorado. We're not making up racist anecdotes about them saying they're eating animals, which that to me, like, the thing is, what's scary though, or concern, is like it's a double-edged sword, right? Because vilifying them will dehumanize them, which then will make it okay for you to start murdering them. And it seems like they have the worst tropes for the Black immigrants, which is a concern to me. So when you're saying these negative things about Haitians, and you're demoralizing, demeaning them, and then too, and again, another country where just recently it's been proven that we had a hand in their leader's assassination. It's come out.
And then the UN just going around the world raping everybody.
Absolutely. And so, to me, it's like the darker you are, the worse your life is going to be in America or anywhere in the fucking globe, which is fucking like, it's kind of like, it's getting to some degree, it's old. Like, come on, like, have a person
turn the page. Look, if America is running on emotionalism and just the illusion that racism is a thing of the past, Kamala will win. And it will have nothing to do with her policy and everything to do with just people wanting to think that we're at the ideal,
I mean, to me, it is. So the catch is with her. So she isn't as emotional as him. She uses her words better. She's more articulate. She's slower when she speaks. Again, she has a variety of word choices. Someone's used thesaurus. She knows how to use a synonym very well. So she's not boring to a listener. I think that she's able to, and she's not like, even if she comes across like she wasn't doing any swinging things. So I feel like she can appeal to the masses, whether, regardless of what your race is. And she just wasn't. So the catch was like, he was like saying insane shit. Well, I would never blah blah blah, and I would go there.
You said millions and billions and millions and billions and billions and billions.
Clear, only like 300 Ukrainians were killed by Russia. And to be honest with you, the biggest issue right now, or one of the threats to even that war, is that there is like their government is putting them at war with each other. But in all actuality, these are people that actually share some of the same ancestry and everything else like that. So that's also what's making it hard, is some of these people don't even want to be in this war. Which is why there's so low casualties, because they're not really looking.
They're not trying to
harm each other in that way. And I think almost it's kind of like this is like a soft war.
No, that's an excellent point.
But for him to be egregious with those numbers, and then the irony is with Palestine, there are hundreds of thousands, but the catch is they're also not counting a person if it's not a full body. At this point, the artillery that they're utilizing is actually shredding. They're shrap metal and everything. So literally, people are picking up their relatives and family members. They're carrying them in bags. And there's a certain amount of kilograms that indicates this would be equivalent to a full-size body.
Whoa.
So there's that. So, and to me, and honestly, the most atrocious, not one of the most, because we can't even leave out the Congo, but everyone's in the Congo, including America, and again, because they're even darker,
Right.
it's quiet, you know. But in essence, it's like he like they downplayed it, or even just like they have a like. At what point do we just have the right to just stop killing each other? What point do we have the right to stop exploiting these countries and raping and pillaging? You know what I did find funny recently though? One of our people were talking to Ukraine. They were on like a thing, like a little mini interview, and they're like, "Yeah, we're going to keep giving them all this money because Ukraine has billions of resources." And I know Zelensky's over there like his face is
Right.
kind of like, so understand too, motherfucker, we don't give a fuck about you. A couple things we really don't give a fuck about you. You are kind of white though, so you are the persuasion of some care. We'll give you a little bit of empathy. Like pray for Paris. We're gonna pray for a building. No, I'm being
Right.
but I mean that people like we really do be praying for
No,
buildings.
yeah.
Whole people, like peoples are dying and being murdered. And we like, but pray for Notre Dame building. It's an eight like fuck that building.
Yeah.
That being said, though, you should have seen his facial expression. To me, that whole war in general, it's also for us a way to deplete the resources of Russia.
Bingo.
We have made Russia our the big bad guy. Russia, and all honesty, they kind of move the same way we do, except they don't get to change out their leadership as frequently. But if we're being ran by a shadow government, even our changing
Right.
leadership could just be for perception, you know?
For sure. Check out the Electoral College not changing since 1929. You know, I feel like there's
And
some
then what's the
reasons
point of
for
that?
that.
Like, why am I voting if you're voting? Like that whole thing is weird. And you know, living in like then what's the point of voting if we're not going off the popular vote anyways at this point anymore?
Right.
Because even somewhere like, so for me in Texas, the vote, like, let's be honest with you, my state is typically red. And not to say that, and so I'll be very clear, no matter what I get on here and say, a lot of my personal values are red, but I don't have to, like, I don't need to say them all. You don't need to know where I stand on a certain issue, certain issues, because if they're personal ones, I just won't do it. If, you know, if I feel something, I just won't be gay. I won't be a trans. Like, if whatever I think about certain things, I don't have to get on here and be vocal and, you know, drag any group of people. I just don't do the shit. If I don't want my children to, you know, I don't want my children to, one, have a child at a young age, and I also don't want my children to be using abortions as birth control. So we're gonna have certain conversations to avoid certain shit. Am I against? And it's like, am I for or against? I'm not for or against controlling anybody's body or anything they're doing. It's your body. Like, you do what you do. It's none of my fucking business. Do I want to really pay for it? Nah, but I also don't want to pay for this huge military either. So, you know, we really, and that's really always what I'm going to focus on. I will never, ever, no matter what I think or feel, even if we look at the money being spent on migrants, it's nothing in comparison to what we're spending on this military that is bigger than life. So that will always be, because it's almost, to me, sometimes even focused on immigrants or social services. It's kind of like you're looking at the garnish on a plate.
Yeah.
Like, but you got this big ass steak though. You're like, but you see that lemon there?
No, that's an excellent point. It's always about distracting the public from what's actually going on, you know, the red herrings and, you know, the propaganda pieces. And then just, are we focused enough as a people to get to the meat and potatoes? Or are we going to get full off of the breadstick appetizer of it all? You know, Trump is he was going for sensationalism, and really, I don't know that he prepared as much as he should have.
No, I think that he underestimated her.
Oh yeah, no, but then Kamala did what she's supposed to do. She's supposed to be able to put on a good show and then not make it worse for herself. I don't know that she made anything worse as much as she just did what people either expected, or she rose to the occasion by not getting belligerent or, you know, turning into a spicy black woman.
But I did like how he said, "I'm speaking," because, you know, that's how she actually, what she did to the protesters that were protesting.
No,
I was kind of,
missed me with the little right.
I was like, "Ooh," he like, remember that? I'm like, "Ooh," and so that's the part too. This is so crazy that it's like, wow, this is this is all so serious and simultaneously it's all like entertaining too.
Yeah.
But you know, I didn't like that, and they actually made shirts of her saying that, and I just found it very disgusting. Personally, I'm like, I'm speaking like the thing is, you're applying for a position. Like technically you work for us, you're applying for a position for us. Like getting on here and like you said, not answering questions but making speeches. That's
Yeah.
cool and all, but no, where do you stand really with this? And
Right.
even for her, for me, it hurt. My biggest issue was not even my issue, but a part of me almost feels like it's a the Democrats have a narrative with Israel due to AIPAC, their relationship. So it's like they're going to keep repeating the same thing, even
Yeah.
though it's not true. I have
Right.
no problem with saying that maybe Hamas did some stuff to some people. Now, me personally, I'm like, well, that's kind of what happens when you're in a hostile occupied territory, and what rights do they have? So honestly, the things that she said they could have done, or let's say that shit was true, which it is not. It is not true. It's been proven it's not true. And not while Israel's raping people and actually like fighting for their rights to rape people right now that they're apprehending, like, and legitimately, and it sounds crazy, but it's true, and they're justifying it. um she brought up the rape thing and all this stuff, but to be honest with you, to me, I look at Hamas as freedom fighters. I've also looked at the fact that whatever agreements were initially made on around the land there, they have already exceeded that far and beyond. So that being said, to me, whatever like it's like as long as you continue to occupy this land illegally, you continue to rape, pillage this land, you're operating in a space of apartheid. And even too, keep in mind there were South Africans that converted after the apartheid ended in South Africa, converted to Judaism and moved to Israel, and were given land to farm and everything else.
Yep.
So again, they know, because in fact they know all too well how to operate in apartheid.
I was gonna say, and I mean that's an invention of the American people, because everybody learned how to treat their melanated people the way that we've been treated, and so the cycle continues. But to the people who've joined us for these past 2.5 hours, that's pretty cool. Again, my bad. We missed 20 minutes of the beginning of the debate. If you want to go back and look at it yourself, Google is your friend. Maria and I will be live on Tuesdays from now on, a little bit earlier. So just hit your notifications if you want to be notified when we're live. And other than that, I think that we should leave them with some thoughts to consider, as they make these hard decisions in the next 56 days, like they said. You have any final thoughts for our listeners?
I think that we're all in a hard place, you know what I mean? We all know it's a two-party system. So even if you choose to vote for, let's say you went for a Jill Stein, you chose a different party. The fact is, it's a two-party system. Parties win elections. Do I think that it's right to stand on your position? Absolutely. Do I think that it's wrong that we've accepted a two-party system? Because that's something that came up with me and my one of my mothers, my other mother. She was very concerned with me throwing away my vote and things like that. And I'll be honest, both my mamas, black and white ones, both of them plan to vote for Kamala. However, I don't think that it makes sense. Like, is it like what were our ethics if we're just voting for someone because we're just doing what we normally do? It's part of a two-party system. The problem is, I think that everyone's assimilated into this structure that has been our demise, and it's not until we actually deviate from it will we actually see some success or see something change. And so you will literally, but the masses have to do something different, and then you also have to be the change you want to see. And that sounds cliche, but it's fucking true, right? It's very true. Like, you can't say, well, let's do it different, but I'm gonna do it like this just real quick because, well, I don't want to throw my vote away. Where you have to do it different past the November. You have to do it different in January. And I think that it's a difficult road ahead of us all. But it can be done. It just might, what they be saying, it's gonna get worse before it gets better, baby. And that's all I got. But it's not gonna be easy. It's not like Rome wasn't built in a day. But perhaps maybe it can be destroyed quickly. Not really sure. No. if Kamala does win, I did hear so one of the Republican leaders did say at the convention that there was going to be a civil war. So not too sure how that would work. I do see that whatever the outcome is going to be, it's going to be a catalyst for something. What that something is, don't really fucking know. I'm not a psychic. But I can, I can read a room very well.
A good point. I like that final thought because it is cliche, but it does work. It's like not reinventing the wheel. You can improve on sliced bread, but I guess you could, you put some butter on it, put it in a pan. You really can improve on things that are out there. However, I think that if you are a person who says you want change, it is insane to think that things are going to change if you're not willing to change. And then to come to some of these understandings and then revert back to something that doesn't work is also insane. But it's only, like you said, it's a long road ahead for anybody who believes that we're bigger than this. Yeah, I can sharpen it. Give me a second. It's going to require work, and for what it's worth, I don't think that there's a lot of people who really are willing and able to do the work. I feel like we've got a lot of keyboard warriors, a lot of talkers, and the doers, they're doing already. They're out here doing the things, and maybe it's just that people aren't aware because they're so busy.
Being so busy, it's also, here's the one thing I do believe in. I'm all for being a revolutionary and all that great shit, but I also believe in taking care of home. There's been too many historical revolutionaries, revolutionaries that they'll tell you themselves they wasn't taking care of their family. They was put money in the movement. Kids ain't do shit for the kid, left it. Like, wait, what? So I don't believe that. And I want to say that because recently I was asked to join an organization that does a lot of activism. And I was going to do it, but then I'm going to be honest with you. I go to work. I'm a full-time student now. I have some other things. And for me, my purpose, though, even me going to school, what I'm going to school for is relevant to what my purpose out in this world. So I also don't want to overfill my plate. And at the same time, I'm not going to be able to actually impact change the way I need to if I don't follow in my own purpose. So while I would love to do that thing, I also have to be cognizant of the fact that I might have a different path or what the way I'm supposed to help or contribute may be different.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, though. Even when we look at revolutionary, there was somebody like James Baldwin was not literally in the front line with a pistol. You know what I mean? But he spoke words that inspired people that are relevant to this day. And not to say that my plan is spoken word. I actually plan to do something action oriented. However, I need to get in that position first.
Mm-hmm.
Then I can do my thing. But I say that to say that we all can't participate in the way that people would think or the way, you initially would think it might be, or you might be behind the scenes. You may be in the front line. You could be the person paying for. I remember when people were getting arrested. I was gainfully employed back during, when it was the Black identity movement was heavy and people were being arrested, with the protests and stuff like that. I remember I wasn't putting my life on the line, but I was putting my money out there to get people out of jail. I was donating money to all these different places and states in Minnesota and here in New York and there, sending money to all these places to get people out of jail. And that was my role. I did it well. I didn't have to go nowhere. But
that's so honest because that's the work. Just because you can't run the ball does not mean you don't have something to do. Because if you out here saying that things need to change, you're gonna have to figure out where you fit. Get in where you fit in. Don't fake, don't front. There's no need for any cap right now. If people are just honest about all of it, then America's better for it, at least in my humble opinion. But y'all know I'm just Eve. So
in my humble opinion.
Y'all, it's been fun tonight. Join us next week. We will have another conversation that will make you proud to be one of the adults in the room. Good night.
Bye.